Hello. Is ELN a terrorist organization? That is the question now that the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, is here in Sweden today to ask Sweden and other countries in the European Union to take ELN off the terrorist list, where it was placed after 9/11. Now, ELN means Ejército de Liberación Nacional, and it's an old guerrilla here in Colombia, created in the 1960s. Obviously, it's leftist, communist, and revolutionary. Now, what do I know about that? Well, one or two things, because last year I was being held hostage by this guerrilla. I went here to the border between Colombia and Venezuela to make a YouTube video, and I decided to grab a scene up here to show the situation, because the Swedish national TV SVT had made a documentary here in which they claimed that the cocaine that's being grown here, this is the biggest concentration of cocaine production in the world in this area. They say that that's being transported to the coast, to Barranquilla, and out from there. Anyway, when I was on my way back, the guerrilla stopped me and they detained me. They took all my camera gear for the YouTube video, and they held me hostage. First they took me up to a place up here. Let's see if I can zoom in. You can see, first they held me in this house here and interrogated me under this tree here. It was a woman who interrogated me here, and one of the things she said was, she accused me of having called them terrorists. And I defended myself and said, well, that's what it says in Wikipedia, and the European Union have them classified as terrorists. That's something they really do not like. So let's see how it is with that. She told me, we put a 5 kilo bomb, a 10 kilo bomb on an oil pipeline and they call us terrorists. The government drops a 250 kilo bomb on us and they don't call that terrorism. So a while later, after having held me here and in this house down here, and then in that house up here, actually when they had me here, I saw they had implements around the house for cocaine production. And if you look here, what is growing down here? It's coca. It's all coca. And the most ridiculous thing is that I have come to the conclusion that most likely the Swedish TV team, when they were filming right here, that is, the Swedish TV was dealing with exactly the same people that held me hostage. For 2 months they held me hostage. First here, like 17 days, and then they drove me over the border to Venezuela here. It's a border crossing, illegal obviously, to this road, and then out on the plains in Zulia, where they locked me up in an old abandoned farm. It seemed to be one of those Mission Vivienda constructed by the government, where there are several houses similar. But, well, could be an individual also. But it was abandoned. And when we were there one day, a helicopter flew over, so they got scared and we walked out in the forest, all of us. And I took the opportunity to talk to them, because normally I was held in isolatory confinement, but there I had a chance to talk. So I told them, you know, this thing with terrorism. I read a document written by a scholar in Yale, let's see if I can find it and put it up here, where he said that he concluded that there were 5 criteria for a group to be a legitimate freedom-fighting group and not a terrorist organization. And number 1 is that they are trying to liberate the country from an oppressive regime. And that obviously does not apply to Colombia. I didn't tell them that. They have to think themselves a little bit also. It doesn't apply to Colombia because Gustavo Petro, the president, who is in Sweden now, is on their side. And the second criteria is that they need to have the support of the majority of the country, and they don't have that in Colombia. And then the third criteria is that they can only attack the regime, like the military, the police, the leaders of the regime, those who give the orders, those that have the power to change things and who do not change things, and anybody who supports them actively. But they cannot attack civilian infrastructure. They cannot attack individual innocent people. They cannot kidnap people. They cannot take hostage like they took me hostage. And they cannot blow up civilian pipelines. So there is no way that ELN is a legitimate freedom-fighting organization. So what is it? Now, this is something they don't like to talk about. This is what they are actively hiding. So let me tell you what I found out there. As I mentioned, let me see where I am. Here, this is where they helped me, right? The first days. And if we zoom in down here, where the Swedish TV team was filming people processing coca leaves and converting coca leaves to cocaine. What do we have here? We have coca plantations, obviously, naturally. And where they have leaves, it's greener. Where they have ripped off the leaves, it's more like that. You see more of the soil underneath. And then those leaves, they chop them up. And the machinery, the tools for chopping them up, they had, and they were using it in front of me here. Not for coca, but all the vegetation that you see around the shrubs here, they cut it down. I told them, you say you're farmers, but I don't see you doing anything. And they went to get those tools. I don't remember the English name for it. In Swedish it's röjsåg, which has a blade in the end, like a lawnmower blade. And they went and cut down all these shrubs and burned them up in March last year. And I said, what are you gonna sow here? Well, we can, yucca or whatever. He named a few things. Nah, they were just doing that to have something to do. And to make me believe that they were not involved in coca. But actually, when we came here, they put me on a chair here and told me to wait. I wasn't blindfolded yet. I didn't have the handcuffs yet. And I didn't have the chain on my foot yet. And, well, I was blindfolded for a while, but then they took it off and moved me out here where they made the food, the kitchen. This is the bathroom and shower over here. And when nobody was paying attention, I tried to run away. I got caught by the vegetation though. And anyway, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. It's 100 kilometers all direction, it's all guerrilla. So they put me a chain, handcuffs, and locked me up in the room here. And I had interrupted them when they were cleaning up. So in a pit in the hole, there's a dirt floor with 2 holes in it that were covered by wood, but they were cleaning. And they didn't finish before they put me in there. They got stressed. And in one of them, under the dirt, was a brick of cocaine. Yellow color it had. So, that's what they do. And when we were, after there, they took me to another place up here, this house. Here I was not allowed to see anything outside, but by a coincidence I happened to see under the eye blindfold. When I was just entering the house, I happened to stumble. And under the blindfold I saw the valley here. And that's how, one of the things that enabled me to find this place is that split-second view of this valley. Because I realized that I was seeing Rio Catatumbo already when it happened. And as I said, all down here is coca plantations. So up here in this building, they had closed off all the walls, sealed between the planks, it's vertical planks. And even so, I under this wall here, there was a little bit of opening. I could put my head to the floor and see out on this wall. So I could see the slope here, and I could see the trees here. And over the door, I could see this mountain slope over here. So it's a positive identification. And then when I needed to go out and do number 2 in the forest, one day they walked me by here, and I could smell the solvents they used to process the coca leaves here. And I could hear the plastic they were working with. So that's what they do. And here's another bigger, they never took me here, but this is a bigger facility. Google Earth hasn't updated this image. This is old. I have bought new images. I ordered them taken, new satellite images. The last one this year, 2024. And so here's a big processing plant of coca. It's huge. Anyway, from there they took me to Venezuela, and then they locked me up there. After 3 times interrogating me here. So they kept me as a hostage. They were not asking for ransom. They told me, you're not kidnapped. First they detained me for suspicion of being an enemy spy. But then they kept me as a hostage. There is no doubt that I was a hostage. They told me so over and over again. And when in Venezuela, I woke up one night and I heard them also doing this cocaine stuff. And afterwards, I could see that they were affected by the cocaine. Even though they didn't deliberately take it, they were still affected by it for a day or two before the effect wore down. And while I was here, and while I still could talk to them, I was talking to several of the guys, youngsters, and in the 30s, and some in the 20s, and some teenagers, even some who was not 18 yet, who were giving me different pieces of information, because there was one guarding me all the time, right? And excuse me. And they were not like politically trained, so they would say things that one contradicted the other. And I found out a lot of information about that. But the main thing is that this cocaine here goes to Venezuela. And I already knew from before that Venezuela is the country of El Cartel de los Soles, the biggest cocaine trafficking cartel in the world. The head of that is Diosdado Cabello, the vice president of the governing party. And the reason I can say that with certainty is because I helped to save one of his bodyguards for 12 years. He was the president of the National Congress. And this person, Juan Carlos López Sarvén, applied for a job as a bodyguard, was assigned to guard the president of the National Congress. And doing that in the inner circle, he realized that Diosdado Cabello is the head of the drug cartel, El Cartel de los Soles. And he told us, we interrogated him carefully before handing him over to the Americans, where he's now in witness protection. And by the way, it's due to his testimony that Diosdado Cabello has a $10 million price on his head. So I got a lot of information of how the drug trafficking is going here, where it's coming in. There are different routes to go in. Let me just sum it up instead of going into all the details. ELN told me that Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua are in the revolution, and they are in the revolution. The guy who told me this was a person in Venezuela, political person. And therefore they defend them. They are together. The ELN is like an armed group that is defending this cartel. They are the main armed branch of this cocaine cartel. Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and also Bolivia is also part of it, even though he didn't mention that. So that is what ELN is. It's an armed group or side of the world's biggest cocaine cartel. And they are the #1 producers of the cocaine. And also some of it they're transporting just through. So that's what it is. You want to call them a terrorist group, it doesn't really matter. It's a part of an international cocaine cartel which includes at least 4 states, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Bolivia, and who has intimate relations, close relations with Hezbollah, with Iran, and also with Palestine, with Hamas, with Russia, with North Korea and China. All of these are, it's like a global cartel that are anti-West and that use propaganda, especially against the United States. That's what it is. Do we want to take them off the terrorist list? You be the judge.